What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Get started with 150 in bonus bets if you win your first bet of $5. Bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, I always get excited for the show, but when we get great games, I get really excited for the show. And we got one really great one we're going to talk about today. How you doing?
Yeah, I actually think we had more than one, but the one that we're going to start with was something else. Like, you don't see a lot of regular season games that come through the TV the way that this game did last night between Houston and Minnesota. It was absolutely electric. The crowd makes that, and then the intensity on the court, they're sort of tied together. It's like a chicken or egg question. Does the intensity start and the crowd kind of feeds off of that, or does the crowd come ready and then it turns it into that? However you want to put it, that was, you don't want to exaggerate, but it did kind of feel like a really important, deep playoff game. Later on, conference finals game. That's the energy and intensity that these two teams played with. You had some spectacular shot making and performances, a lot of really grinded out defensive possessions. Gave you everything, man. So I'm glad we're starting with that game.
Absolutely. That game is, of course, going to be the Timberwolves falling to the Houston Rockets. We're later on in the show going to talk about the Bucks holding on against the Miami Heat. Both of these games kind of followed the same template. Big lead for the road teams, blew it all, and then had to hold on at the very end, or in some cases come back at the very end. So we're going to talk about that, as well as a huge, we usually call it a weekend slate. We're not back until Monday, so we have quite a few games that will be happening between tonight and Sunday night that will kind of set the stage for. But yes, man, we have to start with what I thought was a fantastic game in the running for game of the year, certainly one of the top 10 games of the year so far, and that was the Houston Rockets going into Minnesota and picking up just another statement win. They're starting to collect them legs. They're third in the Western Conference. They're starting to make some statements, but this game featured the Rockets getting up huge, the Wolves making a huge comeback behind, among other things, Rob Dillingham, who's been playing more. We talked about him earlier in the week, starting to play a little bit more. He was phenomenal all the way until he wasn't. Game goes to overtime, and the Rockets tough it out. And I'm going to say tough it out because that's my big takeaway of this Rockets team, man. They are tough. They have a lot of dogs on that roster, including Dillon Brooks, Thompson, who made a bunch of big plays in the clutch, including a corner three, which you don't expect from him. This game kind of brought it all. And you're right, even brought a neon green court, which maybe is part of the intensity. Probably not, but maybe part of the intensity. It was an intense game. It felt big to both teams, and the Rockets pick it up to move to 13-6. What stood out to you about this one?
Couple things. First, just the start that the Rockets had, and they maintained that for the first 2.5 quarters. They had an 18-point lead, and it got wiped out in a very short period of time. And it was mainly during that stretch. It was a whole lot of Dillingham, a whole lot of Anthony Edwards, and they were able to cut that thing all the way down. And now you get a wired, win by a nose finish to the game. One of the things that stood out to me, and he didn't get a lot of shots in this game for Houston, but the way he played was so effective offensively. It was Jabari Smith, and I'm watching him, Adam, and I'm like, man, if Jabari Smith shoots the ball like this, 3 for 4 from the 3, 8 for 9 overall, again, not a lot of shots, but shot it with a lot of confidence in the first half. I'm saying I look at them differently. To me, that moves the needle for them because he's going to play a lot of minutes because he plays really hard defensively. He's really smart, and he just creates a nice flow. He's very athletic, can switch onto a lot of different guys, plays hard, seems like a really good teammate. So he's an easy guy to find minutes for. But if you're Ime Udoka and that guy starts making shots for you, when you already are kind of dealing with Şengün, you're dealing with their two-man game with Van Vliet. They've got a bunch of athletes that can attack you off the dribble. And now you got Jabari Smith making shots for them. This is a night they 15 for 37, 40% from the 3. He made 3 of them. I'd like to see him be even more aggressive and confident and looking for his shot. That's something that stood out to me in the first half when they built that lead. I was like, man, does that add an additional layer to them offensively when the ball comes out of whatever action they run, and he's sort of that weak side guy, and the ball comes to him, he shoots it right away with confidence, or he catches it and immediately drives into a lane and gets to the rim and finishes, because he did both. And I just felt like there are nights I watch him, he's not as confident are involved. I'd like to see him more so. And I think they're a better team when he does that. So your thoughts on that, first of all?
Well, first of all, I love this take, and I love that you're starting with it because I agree with you. He is such a good player. He has a skill set that you mentioned. You mentioned the height, the length. So defensively, he can be an impact defensive player. And then offensively, the spacing. I mean, this Rockets team needs spacing. They need three-point shooting. And so when he provides that, it gives them another element. But you said something interesting here, which is, can he be more aggressive or, something to that effect. I actually think the answer is yes for them to be their final form. But I actually think for him, last night's game is the template for him for probably the next 2 months. He's had an up and down year a little bit. Maybe a little underwhelming 2-year span as you kind of expected him to take a leap at some point, and he hasn't really done it. But I almost wonder, this Rockets team, led by their coach, Ime Udoka, very tough, hard-nosed, physical team. He is a little bit more finesse, cerebral, almost to the point where I think the cerebral part of it, sometimes we see these very cerebral players, they can get in their own heads, especially shooters, and I feel like he's a guy that can be that. So I almost think his growth, if he can get established a couple month baseline of doing what he's doing here, toughening up a little bit, and I think he's very focused on trying to be that, then I think he can unfold his game a little bit more and take the Rockets to another level. But I almost feel like this is the stabilization period for him. All right, where do I fit in? How do I fit into the culture and identity of this team and then expand my game? So to me, I agree with you long term, but short term, I almost feel like last night was the blueprint for him to sort of steady himself and figure out his identity.
That's I guess a fair point on him, man. And maybe it gets to the point you're year 3, and by now you wonder, would that leap have been taken if there is a leap? I mean, maybe this is just what he's going to be, and you're going to have to appreciate those nights when he gets better shots, when he's more involved. I feel like earlier in the game, he kind of stays involved if that's the case. And I guess you got to take these nights as they come, and he's not going to have a stretch now where he strings together some 15 to 20 point games for them. But it was just, I don't know why it just jumped out to me because I feel like I know what the Rockets are. When I watched them enough this year, you kind of know who are the high volume shot guys, the guys that are hunting, and everybody else is sort of sticking around, picking up the crumbs. And then I saw him last night, and he looked so natural when the ball came to him. It was immediately catch, go up, shoot, release. His release looks nice. He let it fly, knocks in a couple threes, a couple slashes, transition play. And you're like, man, this guy looks like he's heavily involved in their offense. And then, you might go a couple games where you don't notice him as much. And there's other guys, because there are some high volume shot guys on this team. Van Fleet's going to get his up. Şengün's going to get a bunch of shots. Jalen Green's going to get a bunch of shots. Dillon Brooks never saw one he didn't like. So, you got a number of guys that are going to get him up, and I guess there's just only so many shots to be had. I just thought the flow of him being included offensively was an important look for their team last night.
Absolutely, man. And especially if you look, the clutch for the Rockets was rough last night. They don't have a beautiful clutch time offense. It's a grind for them to kind of get shots up. And so when we talk about the final form, having another guy who can put it on the floor, create something for himself would be huge for him. But like I said, he almost reminds me in some ways of your guy, Keegan Murray. Remember Keegan Murray last year at the start of the year? Mike Brown was screaming at him, shoot the ball, just shoot it. Don't think, just shoot. He's almost one of those guys where he's trying to make the right play and he's trying to fit in. It's like, hey, the team sometimes needs you to create the action. So I don't know if you like that comp. I mean, they're different players, but I think same in that one way. But for me, that type of player gets the most confidence from being part of the culture and identity of a team, which is hard-nosed defense and everything else. You fit in, you make some plays, you kind of grow in your toughness, and all of a sudden it's easier for you to take some of those outside the lines. I got to push the envelope now. So that's what I'm talking about.
It's funny now we got this thing going with the your guy, my guy stuff. And so now every time you say your guy, I didn't know what you were about to say. And I always wonder if you're just going to try to, pawn some guy off on me that I made some random comment about at some point. Okay, I was glad Keegan Murray is one of my guys. I'm glad you said that. He's one of my guys. But, this thing is taking on a life of its own, the your guy, my guy stuff. I didn't know where you were going to go with that. Yeah. I mean, obviously Keegan Murray's a little bit different player. I think he's better with the ball. So he's a little bit, to me, I expect more upside from Keegan Murray because, he was drafted to do that in a lot of ways. And unfortunately for him, though, he's fourth on the food chain on that team, no matter what, every night. And actually, maybe even further down, if on those nights, if you got Malik Monk going off or Herder's getting a lot of shots, you already got Sabonis and Fox and Sabonis. And DeRozan. So, it's tough for him as well. And in some ways, I guess that's a good comparison because I think it's kind of the same with Houston, man. Like there are just certain guys are getting theirs up.
Yeah.
And some nights, I guess you're gonna have to shoot a high percentage, I guess is my point with Jabari Smith. Like you're gonna have to shoot well to really have an impact offensively because it's not going to be because of volume. Some guys just get to their number because they get volume every night. And other guys like Keegan Murray, Jabari Smith, those guys have to be better on certain nights, like shoot a higher percentage, be more efficient to get to a number that's really going to stand out.
Yeah. The guy I really want to hear your thoughts on, though, is Thompson, because to me, I am so impressed with this guy. He plays 38 minutes. One of the stories of the Rockets, and this is really true, we've been talking about it all year, it's becoming more and more of a trend. A lot of teams only trust 8 guys. And so when they get these overtime games, you see these huge minute totals from guys. He's off the bench, plays 38 minutes, but he played it for a reason. His defense and athleticism is unbelievable. He had 4 steals and 3 blocks last night, including the biggest play of the night, which was a steal from Rob Dillingham. Dillingham had a good game going, a great second half, and he led them back. And Dillingham gets the ball. I think it's under a minute left, and he dribbles down, and you think, oh, my God, here it is. It's going to tilt in the favor. Thompson gets that steal on him, just kind of out-muscled him, incredible length, goes coast to coast. It was the play of the game to me, but it was Thompson making plays like that. He is a terror defensively. And as an offensive player, I mean, that's what you worry about because he doesn't have a great shot, but he's a really good feel for the game, and he has a good handle. He's a good passer. I feel like his offensive game is coming along, and that changes everything, not just for him, but for the Rockets as well. I think this guy is a really, really good player.
The one thing I like about him, he doesn't take shots he can't make. He's not a guy that's got super high skill level offensively. He can defend anybody on the court, plays really hard. He's actually, pretty good at like ball movement.
Yes.
You get him out there for 38 minutes for a reason. The guy's got his handprint all over the entire game, even though he's not a prolific scorer. And you can just go up and down his game log, and you can just see like the shots he's taking are shots very capable of making. 58% in November. He's not getting ahead of himself. He's certainly not going to take, very many threes. He might get up one a night. Pretty much that's it. He'll get one out at some point. Usually it's later in the clock and he's left open and he'll take a shot but he doesn't want to. He's got other ways of putting the ball in the basket, and he never takes a ton of shots, but he does so many things to help you win. And he fits right in with the mold of player Ime Udoka wants. And that's why a guy like that will play 38 minutes, 30 minutes on a night that he takes 4 shots. You don't see that a lot in the NBA. That's what he's out there to do. So I agree with you. Very impressed with him and very impressed with what he did last night in the game defensively, all over the place. 4 steals, hands, deflections on everything. Can guard Anthony Edwards, can switch off and do a decent job on a Julius Randle, or he can guard Gobert on a box out. Like the versatility that he brings defensively is really important.
Because even for his length, like you can compare him to guys like Herb Jones and Jaden McDaniels, some of these long guys. He's strong, though. He has a good, like for being athletic, he also can hold his own, to your point, against some of those bigs. And that's part of what's impressive. And you pair him alongside Dillon Brooks, who is just another, I mean, we know he's a stooge, but the guy plays incredibly good defense and really, really hard. He was also making his threes last night, 4 of 7. He was 8 of 14 overall for 22 points. But Dillon Brooks, you pair him with Thompson. You have Tari Eason. You've got a lot of guys you can throw out there on the court for the Rockets that I would hate to go up against those guys. They disrupt everything. They play incredibly tough. You have to be on your P's and Q's. So Dillon Brooks last night really impressed me as well.
Yeah, and Dillon Brooks, and particularly when he gets off to the great start that he had. I mean, his first 2 times he touches the ball, he knocks down threes, and you could kind of know over the course of his career that sort of set up his night. There are nights he starts out, misses his first 4 or 5, and then you just don't know, is this guy ever, going to stop shooting? Is he going to find it? Is he going to shoot you out of a game? He's always going to play tough and hard, and he's going to do all those things, getting guys' heads. And that's a big part of who he is. But the nights he's also contributing offensively by shooting the ball well early in the game, then you're a different team. I will say this: you said that you thought the play of the game was the steal by Thompson on Dillingham. I'm going to take you to the sequence. It's so funny how the margins are so small in this league. I'm going to take you to a sequence that I think was the biggest sequence of the game because there's a different result if this goes differently. Minnesota's up 5, 2 minutes to go in the game, and Jaden McDaniels off a tremendous pass by Anthony Edwards, who jumped in the air, threw the ball left-handed, like along the baseline, all the way over to the right corner, has a wide open naked three. He makes that three. They go up 8. They're going to win the game.
Yep.
They go up 8 with 2 minutes to go. You're going to win the game. He misses the three. They come right down the floor and off of one pass or 2 passes at most, Fred VanVleet hits a three. So you go from literally basically not icing the game. I know 2 minutes is a long time in the NBA, but I have enough faith in Minnesota defensively. Like, you go up 8, that's going to be tough for Houston. Instead, within probably 6 seconds of missing that shot, it's a 2-point game.
Yep.
And that, to me, set up the finish. We get to overtime, and obviously Houston then goes on and gets the win in overtime. And I thought, to me, that was the turning point, man. And it's so many times as I watch games in the regular season or playoffs, I'll see a sequence just like that. 3 missed, 3 made on the other end. The swing, man. And there's so many threes taken now that you get that all the time. But the ones that are just those daggers, man, like, and it doesn't have to be at the very end of the game. 2 minutes, a lot of time to play, but that's tough to recover from. Because I guarantee at that point, Udoka's going to call timeout. Down 8, 2 minutes, you come out. Minnesota's got a set defense. At that point, you're talking about literally getting a couple of stops, 2, 3 stops the rest of the game, and you're going to win, even if you don't score. There's just not enough possessions. And yet, you miss it. VanVleet hits it. You got a 2-point game. And then Houston ends up tying it up and getting it into overtime, a winning game.
Yeah. The Denver Nuggets, I know Michael Malone calls it kills when you get 3 stops in a row. And you're right. It doesn't matter what point of the game it is. 3 stops in a row almost always is a run, because you're getting transition, 3 straight transition opportunities. You're obviously demoralizing the other team. They're probably going to have to go to a set action the next time they get it. And yeah, so if you get kills, if you get 3 stops in a row, 2 or 3 times in a game, you have a great chance of winning it. And the Rockets are good at getting stops. But the player of the game to me was probably Alperen Şengün. 22 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists. He also added 3 steals, 3 blocks, a whole ton of deflections and different things on the defensive end. And the game winner where he hit Gobert with the too small, which is, I like the young teams that haven't gotten over the hump yet, because they're almost, these games mean so much to them that they can get a little bit into it. But I thought he was great in this game, not just as a fulcrum. Like, they struggle to score, but I feel like every time they play through him, they get something good out of it. And then his defensively, not known as a defensive player, improving on that end. And last night he made defensive plays as well.
Yeah, man. Look, and he goes 9 for 23, but if you go back and look at, and you just watched a melt of all of his shots, you're shooting over Gobert all night.
Yeah.
And Şengün, he's got the little leaner and the 1-footed stuff, and he's got all that. But most of what he wants to do is turn face from a perimeter position. He kind of comes at you with this shoulder movement, and then he gets into a spin where he puts his back on you and then spins right out of that. And he's got all this funky stuff with his footwork and his soft touch. Is like Jokic kind of in that type of action. But at the end of that, you're shooting the ball over Gobert. He's just got ridiculous length, challenges everything. So it doesn't surprise me. On a night when he was sensational, I thought Şengün, don't say that often about guys that go 9 for 23. I just attribute a lot of that to just how difficult that must be to shoot the ball over the outreach arms of Gobert. Yet it was Şengün making big plays late. Even another play where we hit this reverse layup where he felt like he never even lifted his head up. He picked his dribble up, but he was on the wrong side of the rim, and then he just shot it like over his head with his right hand without even looking back and banked it in. It kind of surprised Gobert that he shot it that fast, but that was also late in the game in a big bucket. So I thought Şengün was very good. They had a lot of, they had 3 guys with 20, 19 out of Jabari Smith, 15 out of Amen Thompson, and then there was Jalen Green, who has strung together some interesting ones here lately, and they're sort of overcoming it, and they're overcoming it with different type of lineups. They can go, and that's the thing. You don't need Jalen Green, I guess, on certain nights to play particularly well, because you have a lot of options with your versatility of other places you can go if you're Ime Udoka, and you've got VanVleet there to always be the ball handler if you need to do that. And so that's kind of what happened in this one, man. 3 for 9, 23 minutes. But you had a lot of other guys play really well and make positive contributions in this one.
So when you get into the data with the Rockets, let's talk Jalen Green. I love their guys off the bench. I mean, I talk about Tari Eason, Thompson. I like a lot. I like, Dillon Brooks, Alperen Şengün, Fred VanVleet, Jamari Smith. I think kind of coming along. Jalen Green's the one piece that doesn't work. And when you look at the numbers, when you have Şengün or Fred VanVleet on the court with Tari and Amin, so you kind of stagger the bench, but you keep usually Fred VanVleet in with those guys. I love it. You swap him for Jalen Green, all of a sudden it's terrible. And you look at this, these Rockets, they have decisions to make. I mean, Cam Whitmore obviously still there, not playing, but he's still there. They have guys, and you have to kind of pick and choose. Jalen Green was the guy that you would think, just based on reputation and drafting position, he'd be the tentpole guy. But as I look at it, he's the one guy. I mean, I do feel like he's trying to make some more passes. He's trying not to be selfish. He can't guard like those other guys can. So I almost feel like he's trying, but he's the guy that I look at and I'm not sure he fits. That's the guy I would move on. Did
you just say he's trying really hard? Hey, James. Hey, James.
What do you got?
I don't know, man. Listen. Oh, man. You get some pillow talk there out of Adam. I think we got some pillow talk.
A little pillow talk. All right. Oh, man. You got me these pillows. Look at these things. All right.
I love to you can lay your head right on. Yeah, that's it. Adam coming with the pillow talk. The soft take. Look, I hear you, man. I hear you on
all right, cut it.
But look, we got to be real about this guy. Here's the thing that frustrates me about him. He has incredible talent and athletic ability. I just don't necessarily think that Jalen Green knows how to play.
I don't either.
And some guys, you don't have the innate instincts for it, and you can get better at it. I don't know that he has a good feel, man, for when to and when not to. So as a result, he just goes all the time. I mean, he is now shooting in the month of November, which is basically an entire month, 35% from the field, 24% on threes. He's getting you 2.6 assists and turning the ball over basically the exact same amount. I mean, the fact that he's got a lot of nights with 30-plus minutes, despite all of that, I think it's even Ime Udoka is sitting there going, when you watch some of the stuff he does that is so spectacular, I think there's always a tendency to want to find more minutes because you're like, hey, man, he's going to crack through and he can do things that very few guys in this league can do with his explosiveness. He just can't string together anything that looks remotely consistent or efficient. And as a result, you're looking at a lot of comments over here, in the comment section, people here that want to talk about the Rockets. And you're seeing a lot of people, Adam, talking about, hey, man, if we could move him for this guy, just move him regardless. They think that in some ways he's holding them back or they can upgrade that spot next to Fred VanVleet. That then you might really look at the Rockets, depending on who that player was and who you'd bring in. I saw one person say Desmond Bane for Jalen Green. I mean, I have no reason to think Memphis would want to do that. But, you look at the right type of player, and it would be hopefully a guy that could really shoot it consistently playing off of VanVleet and Şengün and in that system. And even if he's not a good defender, protected defensively with the rest of those guys, that might be kind of player you're looking for. I do have one question for you, though, on Green and this idea about minutes and where should go. Do you think if they felt their top pick, Reed Shepherd, was more NBA ready right now, you'd see more minutes with he and VanVleet out there together, maybe with Reed handling the ball a little bit more and VanVleet to be in a little bit more of that off-guard role? Or do you think that wouldn't matter because maybe they would look at it, hey, we're just a little bit too small with those guys, and Reed Shepherd. I think Reed Shepherd is going to be a very solid defender in this league. Right now, he's going to get picked on a lot because he doesn't have confidence. He checks into the game. He's going to play 10 minutes, and those guys get picked on by the players and by the officials. They just do.
Oh yeah,
everything they do to foul. And so you play hesitantly. So he's clearly not there. They haven't broken through with him. I don't know if it'll happen this year or not. But do you think that could be something if they saw more out of Reed Shepherd? At some point, that would make it more tantalizing to move on from Jalen Green.
Well, I mean, yes, if they saw something from him, first of all, I think they're probably going to move on from Jalen Green one way or another. Just logically, you look at it and say, this is the challenge of building around 8 prospects. some of them are going to fall through the cracks. And by the way, maybe even Cam Whitmore falls through the cracks just by virtue of this team is developing an identity around certain guys. And if you're not a part of it, then you reevaluate. But Reed Sheppard, one of the hard things is we're going to talk about Dillingham in a second. Minnesota's in a position where they can start experimenting. They've already gone to a conference finals. They've done some stuff. Houston's ascending, and they're 13-6. They're a 3 seed in the West. They're already playing a whole bunch of young guys. This is a good wave to ride. It's important for young teams when they're having moments like this to ride it. And I just think it's hard to double down and throw another young guy out there and play him. So, I think I like Reed Sheppard, and I think he's going to be good, but I don't know if it's going to come this year. I think he's going to find little spot minutes throughout the season, and then next year will be the year where it's like, all right, we're counting on you to be one of the guys.
I really liked him coming out. He really impressed me in Vegas, getting a chance. That's the first time I've seen him in person. I loved him on tape. I think he's got a chance to be a really good player. But right now, it's clear. Some guys come in and they're just more able to step onto an NBA court and feel comfortable, make an impact. He's getting backup guard minutes. Most nights he's in that 10 to 12 minute range, some nights he plays a little bit more than that. I think he's a better playmaker than he's been given an opportunity because he's really off the ball a lot. He'll advance it, give it up. He doesn't really get it back. I think eventually he can turn into a pretty good ball screen player with deep range and then playmaking out of that a lot like what we saw at Dillingham actually last night. Which, by the way, brings me to a point on Minnesota I wanted to make. Man, is Donte DiVincenzo struggling? He's had 12 games this year already under 40% shooting. So that you shoot a 30% shooting night, that's an off night. He's had 12 of those already this season. And last night he shot a wide open 3 from a little bit to the right of top of the key that slammed off the backboard on the right side of the rim. It never touched the rim. I'm telling you, I know for a fact I could go out there right now on a court in a suit from the broadcast booth and shoot 5 of those shots with my eyes closed, and I wouldn't shoot one that was as bad as that shot.
Eyes closed.
He was unguarded. It was really bizarre, man. And you could just see, and he missed a couple wide open ones in the first half. The crowd started to get on him, and right after he missed 2 shots, he threw a really lazy reverse pass from the wing to the top of the key that got stolen for a breakaway dunk, and they called timeout, and then there was boos coming down. They were mostly directed at him. I really love Donte DiVincenzo. Man, is he struggling. And you know what's happened as a result of those struggles? He has opened the door for Dillingham. That's the whole reason Dillingham's getting, I know Conley's out too, but the real reason he's grabbing more minutes. And right after that, by the way, 2 missed threes and the turnover that led to the dunk, timeout. DiVincenzo was supposed to get another 3 to 4 minutes in that stretch. Coming out of timeout, he's off the court. Dillingham went into the game right there. And one thing I loved about Dillingham last night, he goes 0 for 5, his first 5 shots. But you know what? His 6th one was a catch and shoot 3 in front of the bench with that guy flying at him where he had almost no room to get it off. And it was plenty of time on the clock. He didn't care about he had just missed 5 shots. He's a rookie. Yeah, he's got a different type of wiring in his ears. Then he goes 5 for 8 after those first 5, has 7 assists. He's a playmaker, man. He's a natural offensive talent. He's not going to do much for you defensively right now, but he helped turn that game. And you mentioned, play that late that definitely was unfortunate for him, but he is making an impact in the opportunities he's getting, and we're going to see if this continues to eat into DiVincenzo's minutes a little bit.
Well, real quick because I want to talk Dillingham, but just to put a bow on Donte DiVincenzo, he played the fewest minutes. They had an 8-man rotation. He played the fewest minutes last night, just 21. He was a -15. To your point, energy wasn't great. Body language wasn't great. Missing shots. The swing pass you're talking about, I feel like those are the plays that happen when you're not locked in, when you're not feeling good about things. That was an unforced error, so to speak. And so for me, I look at that and I go, he does not look like a guy that is happy in his role, that is happy to be there. The team doesn't seem to be very confident in him right now. And as a result, 21 minutes, he was a big acquisition in the offseason. To only play 21 minutes in a big game, that's more than just, you were having an off night to me. It almost is a signal of how the team feels about him right now.
Well, listen, this is an important, and I really don't, man. I don't like the plus minus for individual players. I don't really think, because I just remember being a player, being on the court, doing my job for an 8
Yeah.
or 9 minute stretch, right? Make a couple threes, guard guys effectively, don't turn the ball over. And
Yeah.
everybody else on my team was horrific for 8
Yeah.
minutes. And now I get caught up in a -12. I get a
Yeah.
-12. Okay. So I
Legs
like
was a minus
groups.
12 out there.
Yeah, I like more than individual. Give me groups over a
Yeah.
period of time. I'll know as a coach what groups play well together. But last night, this one jumped out at me because basically those two guys shared those minutes. So you almost split down the middle. DiVincenzo was a -15 and Dillingham was a +26. I mean,
Felt like it too. Felt like it.
that one, like I said, I don't love the number when it's that extreme. And I watched the entire game. It did feel that way in the moment. I didn't think it was a +26. You go and look at it. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that guy was involved in the flow for Minnesota in a way and he gave them just a lot of momentum and confidence. Again, you know how it is, man. Home crowds fall in love with guys too. He's starting to grab a little bit of that to where right now, Donte, he misses a few early. You're going to hear it from that crowd right now.
Oh,
And then
worst.
Dillingham comes in and it's like, oh, breath of fresh air. I saw the same thing in Philly, with guys over the years. I'd be in that arena, I'd be like, man, it's different when this guy goes to check in. And it gives you so much confidence. And look, Donte DiVincenzo, by the way, he can get it going, and I expect him to. He's going to have a nice stretch here coming up. I guarantee it. But I don't think it's Donte DiVincenzo that they're getting from last year. Like I said to you earlier, that's a little bit of a statistical anomaly last season for Donte DiVincenzo. He has regressed to his normal type of year, although I think it's even more extreme in terms of cold shooting. He's a better shooter than this, but this is more like what he is. And now you're going to get him, hopefully get a stretch where he plays nice minutes, starter or off the bench, whatever it may be, and he's solid every night. He's not going to be that Donte DiVincenzo that was lighting people up in the regular season, lighting people up in the playoffs, playing with his best friend, playing point guard in the Garden, everybody in love with him. He's got to go earn it now with this crowd. And so far, he's had a hard time doing that.
If we get to Dillingham, though, this guy, I get why the crowd loves him, man. He is so fun. I mean, he honestly is a phenomenal basketball player, just in a tiny body, right? I mean, if this guy was 6'6", he'd be a number 1 overall pick. He's so skilled. His shot is great. His passing is great. His body control is incredible. He's a little joystick, kind of goes wherever it is he wants to go. And last night, it was neat to see him making plays, not just scoring plays, not even just assisting plays, but just plays, being part of what connected the offense. And that Timberwolves team desperately needs another shot creator and a floor spacer. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you get both in him, albeit at a small size and some defensive liabilities, but you get both and all of a sudden they make a run. And it wasn't just him, but it was the spacing. You mentioned Anthony Edwards. He was getting to the rim. There's more room to operate out there. And it made me wonder, they're playing him more minutes lately. Some of that's through injury, but I honestly wonder if part of that was they drafted him. They moved up to get him. I think they knew that the final form of this roster needed an extra shooter and an extra creator. And they were like, that's our guy. And last night, at least, I kind of see it.
I totally agree, man. He's fun. He's fun. And I just think he's so confident and skilled, like quickness and deep shooting. He's got both. He is a smaller guy. I don't think he's 6'3", but that's the list him at. He doesn't seem that to me, but it doesn't matter. The guy just, he exudes confidence in himself. And I think you're going to start to see, now we'll see what happens. They get Conley back and like what happens then, because he's so smart. He's got all that playoff experience. Like, he's a table setter for those guys. So we'll see what happens then. You might have some tough decisions to make if you're Chris Finch. If DiVincenzo's still struggling, you get Conley back and Dillingham's playing really well. That you got a different type of decision to make on your rotation. But I think now this could be the start of something for Dillingham, man. He's got a little taste of real action, and he's showing you what he's able to do with it.
I'm a big fan of his, man, and I'm just a big believer. But the biggest thing is we get out of here and go to our break. Are you buying the Rockets? They are the 3 seed legs. They're on a roll right now. They're 8-2 in their last 10, 13-6 record. And like I said, man, you have the Thunder and Warriors. They're within striking distance, by the way, of the number 1 seed, just 2 games back. But they've been looking better and better. Are you buying them? That they're one of these, top 4 teams?
I guess I always wonder when you get that question, it's phrased exactly like that, and it happens all the time in this sport. We do it a lot. Like, I guess I need more context of what exactly that means. Here's what I look at them now. With the way they play both ends of the floor, with their toughness, and they've got more than enough, I think, high-level offensive talent to go with their toughness, and I think they're extremely well coached. Add that up. That sounds to me like a team that can win a first round series and
There you go.
play
That's buying
whoever
them.
in the second round really tough. And I'm talking about no matter who that ends up being and no matter what the seeding. Yes, I do. If that means buying them, yes. If you're asking me, do I buy them as a team? I could see winning the West and playing in the finals. No, I don't. I wouldn't go there yet. I
Yeah, of
could see
course.
them winning around, depending on what that matchup ended up being, and then taking one of the top teams who I do think can go to the finals to a 6-game series, 7-game series in the second round. Yeah, they're convincing me because it's what they're doing, Adam, is a carbon copy every single night. It looks the same.
Yeah.
Every night. And that's to me, that's the number one thing you're looking for in a team. If you think they've got like enough talent, that's the thing. Do they look the same every night with intensity and defensive commitment? And like for the most part, their offensive guys have the same role every night. That's Houston to a T. It always looks the same when you watch them play.
I'm buying them in that same way. And that's really what I mean, because I do believe very firmly that there are these checkpoints along the way, and just getting to the playoffs. Very few teams go deep into the playoffs their first time. They remind me of Sacramento 2 years ago. Remember, they were a surprise 2 or 3 seed. I don't remember what it was. Nobody was predicting them to be that high in the regular season. They were. They remind me of last year's Pacers team. Same thing. You're like, oh, well, we didn't have them as a top 3 seed, but here we go. And it's funny because last year, what was it for the Pacers? The in-season tournament kind of propelled them. It was like, okay, now we're starting to buy. The Rockets last night punched their ticket to the playoff round, the elimination round of the in-season tournament, and they might even host. It looks like they might even host a game or two there. So I'm buying them in that regard. I think they're going to have to go through their bumps and bruises, and they're going to have to figure out their clutch time offense, because their clutch time offense is rough. They get big leads, they hold on. That's kind of their MO, but that's not a playoff formula. All right, let's take a break. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's good. That's absolutely fair. I was just trying to look. Did they play? They haven't played Denver yet.
They have not, but they play them here, I think, coming up. I was looking at their next couple of games. They're at Philadelphia tonight, so back-to-back, but Philadelphia is sliding. And then they've got OKC on Sunday. We'll talk about that here in segment 3, because that's a test. You want to talk about a test? Go up against the best in the West and make a statement. That's their chance. Let's take a break. On the other side, the Milwaukee Bucks, sneaky on a little bit of a run right now. Are we buying that run as they go toe-to-toe with the Heat last night and hold on for a win? And then we'll look at the weekend slate later on in the show. But first, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest odds, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. Always important to use our promo codes. That's FanDuel.com/ALLNBA to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Choose wisely on that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com/AllNBA. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, on America's sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we also have Constant Contact to tell you about. Let's talk about goals for a minute. How are you tracking with the ones you set for your business earlier this year? This is the month we're getting into December, where you look back at everything and then look forward to set new goals. Do you know why you have or have not hit your goals yet? You have year-end goals. Constant Contact has what it takes to help you meet them faster. No matter how experienced you are with digital marketing, Constant Contact has the tools to make your marketing run smoother. Sell more, raise more, and build more genuine relationships with your audience with Constant Contact's suite of digital marketing tools, all made to fast-track your success. You no longer need to struggle with expensive, slow, and unmeasurable approaches to marketing your business. Tap email marketing that helps you create and send the perfect email to every customer. Own the smartphone by adding texting to your marketing strategy. Connect with over 2 billion people on social media with an all-in-one tool for posting and sharing, and sell more online in less time with Constant Contact's powerful e-commerce tools. Time to put the go in your 2024 business goals with email, social, SMS, and customized marketing campaigns built for you in just a few clicks. Ready, set, go to ConstantContact.com/allcity and start your free trial today. You can get the link in the bio or the link in the description. Go to ConstantContact.com/allcity for your free trial. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All NBA show. We're doing this 4 times a week, only 3 times. Man, Legs, I love doing this show. I'm excited to have like 4 or 5 days off for the holiday here. We're not back But I got to say, man, there's some good games that we're going to be missing out on. So I'm a little bummed as I look at the schedule.
Yeah, they're bunching everything around a lot of times in the NBA around holidays, So look, it's great. It's great when you're home with a cold beverage in your hand, and some family, you're just chilling. But I got to do some work, Adam. I got to do some work.
Yeah.
I'm calling a game Friday night, which is, I don't know that I've called a game like Thanksgiving weekend. It's you always know in this industry, there's a very good chance you're working Christmas, and I am working Christmas Day.
Same.
But Thanksgiving is a little bit harder because I have to fly to the West Coast early in the day on Thanksgiving Day and then call that. It's going to be hopefully a great game. OKC Lakers on Friday night. So I'm excited about the game.
Great one.
But it interrupts my holiday weekend. But there are typically always great games around the holidays, man. NBA wants that because I know there's a lot of people gathered together in homes. And what do you love to do when you're sitting there with family? You want to watch some NBA basketball. So there are a number of good games this weekend.
Hardest working man in sports. No rest for the wicked. Don't care if it's Thanksgiving. Legs fly across the country. Call the games for us. Entertain us. Last night, another great game. Bucks Heat. Bucks get up big on the Heat, but they kind of blow it down the stretch. They get up big in large part because of Damian Lillard. He was doing a great job off the dribble early. They started throwing 2 on ball. Then AJ Green catches fire. He could not miss for a while there. Goes 3 of 7. Late in the game, though, they kind of start to lose it. You saw it coming in the third quarter through the fourth. They're starting to lose it, and you think, oh, my God, this is classic. They're just going to fall apart at the end and can't keep it going. But they were able to gut it out and get the 106-103 win over the Miami Heat, and now they're 9-9. They were in the gutter, and they've kind of climbed their way out. What stood out to you about this game? No Giannis.
No Giannis. He played Saturday night. He and Lillard both played great in that one. No Giannis in this one. Lillard carried him, and he's done that a number of times since he got to Milwaukee, and Giannis hasn't played. Lillard, it's funny because you just watch him and he just looks like, oh, I'm back in Portland again, where now everything's kind of me and I do what I want and he gets so comfortable, getting such a great rhythm, and he's incredibly talented offensively when he starts stringing together shots. So he was great in this game. I felt like you're right. This game had some Milwaukee jumped them early, got a big lead. Miami fought all the way back, and then it was going to be basically a possession by possession finish at the end. One of the things stood out to me right off the bat, a guy I want to talk about. And you can get into Lillard if you want to more after what I just said, but I wanted to start with a different guy because one thing that stood out to me in this game was Andre Jackson Jr. The speed, the athleticism, the energy is just such an infusion for them that they need. One of the things about the Bucks the last couple of years with Middleton's injuries and not being out there a lot. And I think Lopez, he slowed down a little bit, like defensively. And Lillard instead of Drew, they look slow defensively a lot of nights. And I was watching the game last night. I'm like, man, this dude is flying from end to end. And look, he doesn't have a ton of upside offensively. He was only 3 for 4 for 6 points last night, 26 minutes, but he was a plus 11. And he was all over the place where your eyes visually were watching this guy in a Bucks uniform just move faster than everybody else on their team. And I think for them specifically, they need more speed. They need more athletic ability. They need more of that type of thing. And they got it last night. So he had, 6 points. He did have 9 boards in 26 minutes because he's so active. But that to me, and again, my first impression might not always be on the guys that light it up. My eyes were drawn to that. Like, man, this is something that they really need right now. And, last couple of games played really well for them. So I thought that was something I wanted to give him some love here early.
I mean, you're 100% right about the athleticism thing, especially without Giannis. But even with him, I think that you have a lot of boxes checked. I mean, AJ Green's going to provide you some spacing. Lillard's going to provide you some spacing and obviously some playmaking. Brook Lopez is going to box out. He's going to do a lot of the things that you need, but you need athletes around them to kind of fill the gaps. And last night, I don't think it's coincidence. Andre Jackson gets 9 rebounds that led the team. Number 2 on the team, Pat Connaughton, another athletic guy who has a motor to him, can play with a motor. They need those types of guys. And I'm with you, though, about his offense is scary. He's one of the guys that I look at and I'm like, man, I just don't know what he's going to be able to do. He had a bad turnover late. He had a bad turnover late. That was one of those ones that you only make when you don't really feel the game and those types of things. But I do agree with you that defensively, he's a monster. He goes after everything. He doesn't he has hopeless defensive plays that he'll still close out 100% on just because he knows that's his role out there. I really like him defensively. So I'm with you.
And I I haven't got it pulled up here. I don't know how many games he has started. He started 9. I don't know the sequence of those games. Is that all been here lately? Like they just decided to go with him in the starting lineup because look, they've won 7 out of 8. And he has started 9 games. And I see the last 2 he started. I'm going back, I'm trying to find these box scores to see like
I can find them right here. So he has started, yes, he has started in each of the last, it looks like 5 or 6 games.
Okay, and they've won 7 out of 8. I mean,
Yeah.
and so I'm not saying he's the sole reason, but there's something they were looking at too in practice on film, and they just like we need an infusion of that and to start games. And it's not a coincidence. And the Bucks, look, they kind of have basically salvaged, their this horrific early start. Like can you dig out, man? They were so bad early. They were getting beat up. There's a lot of scrutiny on Doc Rivers, a lot of scrutiny on this team. The way it ended for them, they were 17-19 when he came in last year to finish the year. They got beat in the playoffs. I know they were all banged up. Giannis wasn't there. I get it, but they still got sent home early. And that was a team with Lillard and Antetokounmpo on at the start of the year. That's a team you're expecting to contend. They're gone early. All kinds of questions over the summer. And you're thinking, okay, give Doc the free benefit of the doubt. He's got a full training camp, full off season. Let's see now. And they get out of the gate the way that they did. And you're like, wow, man, this is really starting to get to be like red flag time. And they've turned this thing around. 7 out of 8. They've gotten themselves back up to 500 and they're climbing and in a conference with so many question marks with some of these teams and teams dealing with injuries. The Bucks at 9-9 have already gotten themselves up to the 5 spot and they're 2.5 games to the 3 spot. So at the end of the day, you thought they'd be one of the top 4. They might still be because they're getting things turned around.
So it's interesting as I'm looking at this starting lineup chart, and I was not aware of this till looking this up, but they lose 6 in a row. They're 1-6 on the 4th of November, and they make the switch. He starts in that game, they get a win, but then they lose the next 2. They go away from him for a couple, and then they start him again immediately. I mean, actually, they lose the first game at Charlotte by 1 point, but then they go on this win streak that they're currently on. So it could be as simple as that they've kind of found a piece there, and it's like, all right, we figured something out, and we're kind of moving. And you're right about the standings. I mean, the East is such a joke that they were just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, really, we're sitting there. They were in the Philadelphia 76ers tier where you're thinking, what's going on? Legs, they're a 5 seed right now. 9-9, 500 record, a 5 seed. And again, within striking distance of now, the 3 seed, the Orlando Magic, who have been phenomenal, only 2.5 games ahead of them. That's the East for you. You could have the worst possible start and then a good 2-week stretch and you're right back in the mix.
To your point, the Philadelphia 76ers sit there at 14th in the Eastern Conference at 3-13. They're 4.5 games back of Miami to avoid the play-in and get a 6 seed. Yeah. I mean, that's where we're at. So that's why no one's writing them off. It's been crazy. Horrible. I mean, it's in a lot of different levels, injuries, their play, distractions with Embiid, team meetings, reporters getting shoved, all kinds of stuff going on. That's why no one's given up on them because the conference hasn't run away from them. Cleveland is I think a pretty known commodity, and then so's Boston. Orlando, I think I know what they're going to be when they get Banchero back, but they got to go a long stretch without him. I think I know what they're going to be, and I think they're legitimately a top 4 seed in the East. But then look, the Knicks didn't expect to be sitting here at 10-7. Bucks are 500. The Heat are under 500. The Pacers went to the conference finals last year. They're 8-10. Right on down the line, there's so much uncertainty that you look at a team like Milwaukee and you go, all it takes is one pretty good little mini hot streak here early in the year, and you jump right back into it now where you're all of a sudden you're a 5 seed and you got your sights set on getting to the 3.
Yeah. I mean, are you buying them though over this little run? I mean, they have a couple good wins under their belt here. Oh man, I just had it pulled up, but 5 in a row, does it mean anything to you, or is this just, hey, they're bouncing back from a really bad start, probably playing a little bit harder than other teams?
Well, look, I look at it like this, like really good win against Houston, really good win against Houston, and a tight game, a defensive minded game, which is important for Milwaukee because they had to outscore you at one point to have any chance to win. Beat Chicago by 16. That's what you're supposed to do. Beat the Pacers by 12, put up 129 on them. Charlotte by 6. None of these teams are like great teams, but it's more about
They're
how
all
they're
okay.
playing. And then you get the Heat by 3 in a game where you give up the lead and then you got to make plays late and you do it.
Yeah.
And then Detroit, Toronto are the other two in this 7 out of 8 stretch. The only loss being a 1-pointer to Charlotte, or they've got an 8 game winning streak right now.
Man.
I'm not saying I'm buying them right
Yeah.
now. All I'm saying is okay, this isn't going to be completely off the rails where this thing falls apart. They've gotten themselves righted. They're winning games. They're climbing rungs in the ladder in the East. I still think there are several teams I like better than them because I just don't know if I fully buy into their defense being enough to handle teams like Cleveland, Boston, maybe even a team like Orlando.
Well, their schedule coming up, home against Washington. That should be a win. You're at Detroit on 3 days rest. A good chance to win that one. Detroit's playing some good ball. And then you're at home on the second night of a back-to-back against Atlanta. I'm not saying they're for sure going 3-0, but those are 3 winnable games. And if you can get to 12-9, the season resets. You're good.
Well,
and
you know what? I love what you just did. You took them right up to the precipice of what really is going to matter. So let's just say they'd win those 3 games and they get to 12-9. At that point, it's 10 out of 11 they would have won. Yeah. And I don't think it's a stretch to think they could beat Washington, Detroit, and Atlanta 3 in a row, 2 of those at home.
Not at all.
So I think that's a good chance that actually happens. If they do that, here we go. Friday, December 6th at Boston, ESPN game. That gives you now, okay, you've cleaned your house. Now are you ready to have guests over? Right? There's a big difference between those two things. Like I could go out right now into my living room and I could pick up all my 3-year-old's toys, and that's called straightening up. So it doesn't look like a disaster. The Bucks have straightened up their playroom. Now are you ready to have guests over for a formal dinner? We're going to find out on Friday, December 6th.
What a dad metaphor right there. That's what you get here, man. Right around the holidays, the ultimate dad metaphor. Anything else on the Bucks that you want to touch on, or maybe even on the Heat?
No, Miami's just, man, they're a hard watch for me. Just everything feels like they're just surviving, you know? So no, the Heat, the Heat to me, it's funny because every year for as long as I can remember, you talk about the East and you always throw the Heat in there. Well, don't forget about the Heat. What about the Heat? Because you don't talk about them a lot. I don't know that I feel that way this year. I just don't feel that way about them this year, man. So, they lose the tough game and they're good enough to play you tough and then lose a lot of those games.
All right. Well, let's get to our weekend slate. Like I said, we're off for 5 days. We're going to be back on Monday. We're going to have tons to talk about, Legs, because as we brought up at the top of the show, they always put the best games right around the holidays. Tonight, we have the Knicks at Dallas. I think that'll be a great game. The Knicks are playing great. Coming off, they had a tough loss at Utah, but they blew the doors off of Denver the other day. They are on the rise. And Dallas, obviously, that should be a tough matchup for them as they continue the road trip. Sacramento at Minnesota is a good one. Minnesota has to bounce. Sacramento and Minnesota both are trying to figure out which way this is going to break for them. It has been unimpressive for both teams. Lakers at San Antonio. I like that one. Should be interesting. And then the game of the night to me, Oklahoma City at Golden State, the 2 top teams in the Western Conference. Hartenstein's looking dominant. That game is phenomenal. What are you looking for tonight in that one?
Man, that's the game night. I'm glad that's on late because I'll be tied up most of the day after this, and I'll finally get a chance to settle in. And some games I have to watch the next day because I just don't have enough time. You watch them in the morning right before the show, and I watch them when you want to watch live games, it's nice to be able to sit down when you do have time and watch a game like that. I can't wait to see that. And the Hartenstein impact, against the team that plays smaller, and you just want to see because look, Golden State, I think they're legitimate, man. Their defense is that good, and Curry hasn't been crazy good, and yet they're still winning games at a high rate. So this is an interesting game for me to try to look at a team that I know is going to be there, like legitimately could win the West in Oklahoma City when they get fully healthy against this Warriors version, man, and kind of a reset for them. So I think this is a great barometer game for the Warriors, even more so than the Thunder.
Yeah, I saw somebody and they gave a message on social media. They gave a message in the comments of the show, and then they gave a message today in the live chat saying, "You're losing credibility by not talking about the 35-point win the Knicks put on the Nuggets. You're losing credibility." Here's how we plan the show, just so everybody knows. There's a slate of games. We let them play out, And then at like midnight, my time, 2:00 in the morning, Legs' time, I'll text him and say, hey, what's the story tonight? What games do you want to talk about? And we'll kind of go back and forth. When a team wins by 35 points, sometimes that's the story. But most of the time it's not. And so we don't put that as the top slate. There's not a lot to break down when a team's up 25 points at the end of one. So that's all that goes into it. Don't think there's anything else. On Friday, another great game. Lakers at Oklahoma City. You're calling this one, Legs.
I'm excited. I mean, it's, I'm not thrilled with traveling on Thanksgiving Day, but I love calling games, and I'm looking for that right now. Lakers, like started out hot. Then he went on a road trip, lost 4 out of 5 early in the year, and you're like, oh man, because it's that market, that team, that brand, the names on the front and the back of the jerseys. It's a lot of pressure, man, associated with everything going on there, and you got a first-time head coach with no coaching experience, so. That they're and again now they're back again. They got blown out 2 games in a row by good Western Conference teams. So for me, like this is a really important moment for the Lakers, man. And trying to stop the schneid that they're on. They get that game at home. They get Oklahoma City, who's a very good team, but they're not at full strength. Let's see if they can get things going right at home as we head into December.
So I have a theory on you for you on this, and I'm curious what you think. Last year, the Nuggets in 2023 sweep the Lakers. And Anthony Davis and LeBron James, at Media Day said they had these quotes, we've had some conversations. We want to get back. We don't like how the Nuggets have been talking about us. We're calling them their daddy and this or that. And then the Nuggets on opening night just smacked them. And I thought it took all the wind out of their sail of like, all right, maybe this team just owns us. The Lakers were on a run, Legs. They had 6 wins in a row. They lose a nail biter to Orlando. Franz Wagner hits that clutch 3. And then they go into Denver and lose by 25 points. And I almost wonder sometimes, just tell me if you think this is true for professional athletes. Maybe I'm way off base. But there are some times when a team has your number and you're on a run and then they smack you that it just deflates you of like, man, we thought we were making a move here, but we keep losing to the same team.
Well, I don't know. Yeah. And I just saw this other night with the Clippers. It's not necessarily the same team, but they had just won 5 in a row, shutting people down to under 100 every night. They go into Boston and they get blasted by 30. And it's just kind of like, wow, okay. You know what? Maybe we're not quite ready for that fight, but like, let's go back and get away from this city, and everything's going pretty well other than that. So yeah, it is. Things like that are demoralizing. I'm just looking also at the Lakers. So, you look at Dalton Knecht had broken through. He gets a couple of starts. He has 37 against Utah. It comes back against Orlando. They lose a really close game, but plays really well in that game at 19. And now you get into these last couple, man, where they get absolutely blasted and they're getting back away from it. You go back to Cam Reddish as your starter the last 2 games. And in the first game, Cam Reddish goes 2 for 3 for 6 points. Dalton Knecht gets 28 minutes off the bench, 3 for 7, 9 points. So it kind of affected his rhythm. Cam Reddish didn't really do a whole lot offensively. And I know what they're saying. Hey, I guess we want the defensive presence at the starting lineup. And then you come right back and you play the Phoenix Suns and go back to Reddish again. 23 minutes, 0 for 3 as a starter. 0 points in the game. Dalton Knecht, 19 minutes. So now his minutes are now back to 2 for 7, not a factor in the game. I'm just curious. Like I just think the spacing he gives them off of LeBron and AD and just another component to their offense. I don't think the Lakers are going to win games by being a defensive juggernaut. I think they're going to win games because they can be so good offensively. They give themselves a chance every night. Let's see what happens there, man, because Dalton Knecht was playing well. They were playing better. They go back to Reddish, Knecht off the bench. Then he's not really a factor anymore. And Cam Reddish does nothing in 2 starts. And they lose both games badly. So I'm just something to look at.
Bring the graphic back up, James. I want to look at it. The other game that we have on Friday night that I love, New York Knicks at Charlotte. Predict the score of that game real quick for that one. The Knicks have been putting up 140.
Here's one thing I am going to predict. Charlotte has LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball gets Jalen Brunson in front of him, who took the league by storm here over the last couple of years, And these point guards, man, they like making their statements when they get another one in front of them. So one thing I will predict, LaMelo Ball takes 25 shots in this game.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's probably going to score 40, though. He's on a 40 streak. Lakers at Minnesota. Then Saturday, Golden State at Phoenix. That one's always fun. And then Sunday, the slate is incredible. Indiana at Memphis. I am excited for that one. Indiana's still trying to figure out who and what they are. Celtics at Cleveland. That's going to lead the show on Monday. I'm almost certain of it. OKC at Houston. We just talked about Houston. That's their chance for a statement. Denver at the Clippers should be a good one. And then San Antonio at Sacramento. Real quick, Legs. Real quick. Very under the radar. Nobody's talking about it. But Wembanyama and the Spurs are 10-8 right now. 10-8. They have a winning record, and they've gone 7-3. They've won 4 in a row. And they have a little bit of time off. They only play 2 games in the next 6 days. That game could end up being kind of a meaningful one. If you get Sacramento, you can find yourself 12-8 by the time we talk next.
Yeah, and I thought Victor Wembanyama, by the standard that he set a year ago, and the way he finished the year in particular, the last 2 months of the season, 3 months of the season, he had a slow start to the year. Like, he came out, he averaged like 18 points a game in October, and then he got it going in early part of November, and now, man, 34-7 the other night. Like, he's doing it again every night, very similar to what he did for the last 3 months of the season. And he was a little bit tentative at the start of the year. And maybe that's just kind of how he is at the beginning of the season. I don't know. Maybe that'll change next year, but he's rolling now. And the Spurs winning games. Like you said, I love the way you put it. Sneakily sitting there at 2 games over 500. And they've got some better teams they're going to be playing in the Western Conference here coming up. So I think you get a much better feel about who they really are overall as a ceiling. And could this be a team that's, a play-in team or better in the Western Conference? Because I didn't know that they were coming in.
Yeah, 100%, man. Those are a lot of good games, though, man. That's a lot of good games between now and when we come back. No shortage of storylines. I can't wait for Monday's show, but I'm excited also to get with family and have a little bit of a vacation. I hope everybody watching has enjoyed the week's shows, and I hope everybody has a fantastic Thanksgiving. Enjoy some basketball, enjoy some family, and comes back to us on Monday when we start the show up again. If you're not subscribed, what are you doing? We've got great content, shorts, videos, and of course this live show on there. Follow us on social media. And everybody have yourself a great Thanksgiving. See you next week.
We all silly like the mayor.